Hello, I'm Dr. Ann Ramsey. Welcome to the annual Women in Leadership Changing the World Awards and Conference. The annual WLCW event at Mission College is designed to educate our students and the community on the contributions that women have made both historically and now. It celebrates diversity and inclusion, and it recognizes the importance of seeing the success of people who help change the world, especially women. It is about learning a more whole and complete history, where the contributions of women from every walk of life is acknowledged, memorialized, and honored. The purpose then of this award is to recognize and celebrate women who are making contributions in their professions today. They're making contributions in their fields of study, in their areas of service, and in their communities. This year's honorees are Judge of the Superior Court, the Honorable Gail Brewster Bereola.
One day on a Saturday evening, early evening, I got a call and I answered it, and it was the governor's appointment secretary asking me if I wanted to be a judge. And that's how it was put. First, he asked if Gail was there. I answered I was Gail. And he says, "Gail, would you like to be a judge?" And I was just in shock. I didn't know what to say, but finally I composed myself and said, yes.
The Emmy Award-winning sports broadcaster, Anne Marie Anderson.
I knew from a very young age, from 7th grade on, that I was going to be a journalist, and I knew that it was going to be in sports. News and entertainment did not appeal to me.
And the civil rights activist, former Vice Mayor and County Board of Supervisor member, Ms. Blanca Alvarado.
I represented the poorest district in the entire city. There were 10 districts, and District 5 was the neediest, was the one that had been the most neglected, was the one that was definitely in need of super high advocacy on the part of a representative. But remarkably, all of the women understood the position that I was in. And so to have been able to accomplish as much as I did on the city council in support of my district is a tribute to the women that shared that important value of equality for all.
Congratulations. Blanca Alvarado's civic activism started as a high school student in San Jose. Achieving equality for her community quickly became her life's mission. Ms. Alvarado joined forces with Cesar Chavez in the Emerging Community Service Organization, a Latino civil rights group. Ms. Alvarado became involved in several organizations, including the Mexican American Political Association, where she served as president of the local chapter. A turning point came in 1978. To help ensure representation for minority neighborhoods on the city council, Ms. Alvarado pushed for district elections rather than at-large voting. The measure passed. She spent 14 years on the city council fighting the social injustices that plagued her district. Her time included 2 terms as vice mayor, the first Latina to hold the position. Ms. Alvarado joined the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors in 1995 and went on to become the board's first Latina chairperson. Ms. Alvarado recalls her time as a county supervisor as the most impactful and memorable of her political career for the work she was able to accomplish for children and families, the juvenile detention system, and public safety. She's received many awards for her contributions, but perhaps most notable is the middle school named in her honor. It's here generations to come will learn about her life of activism and how they too can engage.
The Community Service Organization was our first real community engagement, a process in East San Jose that brought forward so much leadership and so much training and so much recognition of the importance of being involved. You know, it was during that time as well that we emanated out of Most Holy Trinity Church, the parish activism, the most Guadalupe Church activism, and the establishment of a very, very progressive, active community that for the first time, I think, in many, many years, understood that in order to achieve equality in one's community, one had to take action. It was during that time that I think we really learned what it means to be politically active. Before, it was community activity which centered around the needs of people. But through the Mexican American Political Association, we learned the ropes about how to maneuver in politics. We flexed our political muscles back then and felt really, really proud of the work that we were doing politically. But at the same time, my role as president of MAPA shed a spotlight on me and our community from the higher ups of City Hall. Having been such an activist all of my time, I was really prepared to seek a seat on the city council because after decades of involvement in the community, I had established a persona in the community, and I was elected in 1980 as the first Latina, the first person to be elected from District 5 in East San Jose. The 14 years that I spent on the city council were absolutely riveting. They were progressive, they were productive, they were rewarding because for the first time, East San Jose residents had the opportunity to share in the services and the representation on the city council. As I turned out in 1994, Zolakran was then elected to serve as our representative in Congress. And surprisingly enough, I thought I was going to go home and just spend the rest of my life doing things out of my home with my family, with my community. But instead, I was really encouraged to apply for the vacancy that was created by Zolakran's election to Congress. So for 14 years, I spent incredibly wonderful years as a supervisor, a position that to this day, I think is the most impactful position, politically speaking, of any local government. That is not to say the school boards and other agencies aren't important, but the work that we did on the Board of Supervisors is so far-reaching and so directed and focused on serving families that it was a great, great, great time for me to have had that wonderful opportunity to serve the people of District 2 on the Board of Supervisors. In my experience, we need more women leaders in politics because generally speaking, I think we're more open-minded, we're more consensus builders. We don't take things personally. We're achievers. I think we're more prone to collaborations. I think we're also more geared towards leadership because we raise families, because we work in communities, because we are more attuned to the needs of families in particular. And I think one of the things that has struck me so much, when I was on the city council, there were 7 women who were elected in 1980. I mean, it was just phenomenal to work with 7 women, and the mayor was a woman as well. So we were known as the feminist capital of the country. And it was a wonderful tribute, but it also exemplified how women get down to do the work of legislating, of making policy, not from a personal perspective, but from a community and a family-driven, oriented position. I don't know the extent to which your gender population is female, but to the men that are listening as well, combining forces with other women, combining forces with other men is absolutely what we have to do, because the challenges of today are daunting and require that we all roll up our sleeves and work together. to make things better. I believe I have modeled my life, my civic activism, in the words of Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa said many years ago, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone on the waters and create ripples." This is a time when we have to expand our networks. It's really important for people to get out of their comfort zone and to look around and see, I really don't know much about this other person. I'd like to know more about this other person, because together, this other person and I can change the world. I would say, go out and create ripples. Don't be afraid to take a chance. Be adventurous in your life, because the world has so much to offer, and the world is in a place now where all of us have to do our very, very best to protect the planet and to protect our democracy.
Anne Marie Anderson knew from an early age that her life's work would revolve around sports. Upon graduating from Hofstra University, she worked her way into a job at ESPN and into an Emmy Award-winning career. Miss Anderson started as a production assistant and rose to the leading position of bureau producer before making the jump in front of the camera. She earned 3 Emmy Awards during her 23-year run with ESPN. But it's Miss Anderson's versatility that stands out. She's worked as a writer, a studio host, a sideline reporter, and is known as one of the most experienced play-by-play announcers in the country. She currently lends her voice to a number of networks, including CBS College Sports and the Pac-12 network, calling live events such as volleyball, basketball, soccer, softball, and track and field. Miss Anderson's covered 6 Olympic Games, the NBA playoffs, the Super Bowl, MLB playoffs, golf majors, college football games, even heavyweight title fights. 32 years into her career, Ms. Anderson remains an avid sports fan and participant. She'll play any game that keeps score.
I have 4 older brothers, and so I knew I was always going to be in sports somehow. I never really had a choice as a kid. That's all that was on the television. That's all we played, and I loved it. Out of college, I applied for a 6-month job at ESPN, temporary job, and did not get it. And when I wrote my letter back to them saying, thank you for the interview, because in those days you write the letter back, I said, I understand that you have a lot of people there who have terrific sports knowledge. However, I have television experience. Don't you want to balance that out? I can learn the Mariners bullpen maybe easier than they can learn how to cut a highlight package. And I got the job for 6 months, temporary, and I stayed 23 years. Once I got it, I just didn't let go. I decided I wanted to be in front of the camera. I think I admitted I wanted to be in front of the camera. Before that, I just had trouble really finding my voice and admitting that that's what I wanted to do. And I went to a different division of ESPN and sent in my tape and got a call back from ESPN Maine. And they offered me a sideline reporting job on regional sports television. And my boss in the production side said, well, you can either keep your producing job and keep producing all our major events, or you can take the sideline reporting job for a little bit of money, and that's it, and 8 guaranteed games. And I took the leap and said, okay, I'll take the 8 guaranteed games. And he said, that's crazy, why would you do that? But I just really felt like I wasn't gonna be a great producer anymore if my heart was somewhere else. And so once I told him I would take it, he said, okay, you can still produce during the week, but you can do sidelines on the weekend. And that really taught me something. I wasn't bluffing, but I made a decision that was right for me, and it ended up being right for everybody. I was able to be on air and produce. So when I wanted to have something a little more scheduled, I looked at live events and started out as a volleyball analyst because I played volleyball in college. Quickly decided I needed more work than that, and that if I moved to play-by-play, I could call all different sports and work year-round. And so that's what I've been doing since 2003. And each year I add in new sports or new challenges for myself. And so, whether it's water polo or men's basketball or, pro beach volleyball, I keep myself busy all year long. And I really enjoy that part because I get to work with terrific pros in all these sports and learn from them and have them help teach the audience the game and what to look at. And I really think it was my producing experience that allows me to draw on them the way that I do, to be able to coach them the same way when I was a producer, coach the reporters I was working with. And I also coach myself. When I watch it back, I coach myself. We need more women in positions of leadership because while we are able to complete some of the assignments and the tasks and stuff, we're not giving the assignments enough. We're not making the tasks enough. We're not producing the shows. And the other day I worked with a female director. There's not enough female directors in the show who are telling the crew what to do and what shot is going to be done. And so while we have entered a certain level of belonging within corporate world, television, whatever the world is, we need to be the ones doing the hiring and leading. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and the other day I had to go to work, had to go to practices to prepare for the next day's game. I had nowhere for her to be, so she came with me. And as I was sitting and talking to the coach, I noticed she was taking notes. Afterwards, she came up to my surprise and said, "Coach, I have a question for you." And the coach was kind of stunned, as was I. And she said, "What did your team not do yesterday that you need them to do tomorrow?" The coach answered that: rebound, follow the scouting report, zone defense. And I watched Lena then go and interview athletes there with the coach's permission. I didn't know that she was really seeing what I was doing. I thought she was just coming along because I had no one to help take care of her that day. But I think that's the biggest thing about developing young women and being in the position I'm in now as a leader. The girls are watching, and they're watching you prepare. They're watching you handle rejection. They're watching you respond and be resilient. And you have to be conscious of that at all times. That was a great lesson for me. My advice for young women in whatever career field they're in is don't wait until you think you're 100% qualified for a position, because our counterparts, our male colleagues, don't do that. They apply for the job if they're 60% ready. And there's statistics that have shown that. So apply when you want the job, when you have some qualifications for it. If you don't have them all, you're going to need to go for it, or you're going to get passed up. Sometimes, of course, you'll apply for it and then you won't get it, and they'll come right back at you and say, "Well, you're not qualified." And what do you do with that? If they say you're not qualified, then you say, "Okay, what aspects am I missing that would make me a better candidate for this job?" Once they give that, follow up again. "Okay, I hear you." Repeat it back to them. "How can I get there? Can you help guide me in terms of where I can get that experience? I value the position I'm going after, and I want to be completely prepared for it in whatever way you need me to be." That kind of eagerness resonates with leaders. Maybe they'll walk you through it a little bit. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll say this is somebody who's receptive, who will do side learning in order to get to the position. You never know. I guess that all boils down to be brave, hear no, think not yet. Sometimes it'll be not yet in this position, and sometimes it will be I need to pivot and find a different position with the same bravery.
The Honorable Gail Brewster Bereola's life of service started in San Francisco Born in the city, she went on to receive her Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of San Francisco and her Juris Doctorate degree from UC Hastings School of Law. She also joined the U.S. Army Reserves and eventually the JAG Corps. Ms. Bereola worked as a prosecutor in the San Francisco District Attorney's Office before moving to the East Bay and into private practice. But the bench called. Ms. Bereola was appointed as a commissioner to the Oakland Piedmont Emeryville Municipal Court in 1991. Just 10 months later, then Governor Pete Wilson appointed her as a judge in the same court. Judge Bereola has since been elevated to the Alameda County Superior Court. She's handled multiple assignments and held several leadership roles, including supervising judge of the Superior Court and presiding judge of the Juvenile Court. One of her most impactful contributions centers on her efforts around restorative justice, which focuses on the rehabilitation of offenders through reconciliation with victims and the community. Judge Bereola convened Alameda County's Restorative Juvenile Justice Task Force and collaborated with local organizations to implement restorative justice processes into the county's schools and juvenile system. Judge Bereola has earned statewide recognition and countless awards throughout her 40-year legal career, from outstanding contributions to the law and to her community.
To be a Superior Court judge, and that obtains today as well, you have to have practiced law at least 10 years preceding your appointment or your election to the bench. And so that's what that means, to be a Superior Court judge, that you've satisfied that and that you've either been appointed or you've been elected. And that qualifies you to handle criminal matters and civil matters. Usually they are important or serious criminal matters because superior courts are courts of general jurisdiction that hear all criminal and civil matters first. And the civil matters generally start from $25,000 minimum and then go up. The legislature is the one that enacts and makes the law, and then courts carry out that law. We apply that law in cases that come before us in court. And sometimes, yes, we may have to interpret the law, but mostly we just try to apply the law. And hopefully the law is clear so that it can be applied and you're not having to do a lot of interpretation of the law. But if you do need to interpret, there's case law, there are cases. And from those cases, that's how you are able to determine the nuances, so to speak, of the law and whether a law is on point or applicable to a particular case or not. It's always necessary to have women at the table. And maybe I say that because I'm a woman, but I also say it because I think that naturally women tend to be nurturers. Women, and I don't mean that in a deprecating way. I think it's a good thing to be nurturing and to be able to see the abilities and the talents of others and to try to nurture that. There are too many areas where, unfortunately, there could be a lot of improvement in terms of inroads for women. For example, in the legal field, when I started off, the legal field was very male dominated. Sometimes when men are not used to being around women. There may be a tendency, even though they have mothers, they may have sisters, there may be a tendency to downplay what women really know and what they add to the table. And so for the benefit of men, as well as for women and others, I think that it's important to have more women, because we do add something and we do bring something to the table. We have a thought process. We have ideas of how to do things perhaps in a different way that we can offer. We all have experiences, and our experiences are wrapped up in our backgrounds and who we are. And definitely as a Black woman, I have a perspective that is probably unique and different from your perspective. And that doesn't mean that we can't have perspectives that agree and that are similar. But I come from a different background, you come from a different background. And so I think that all of those perspectives are just as important. And when you don't have, when someone is missing from the table, none of us get to benefit from the perspective that that Black woman has to offer. And that perspective can mold and shape who we are as a nation as well. So I think that it's really important that we all be at the table. It is important, I think, to be mentored. And mentoring can look a lot of different ways. It's not that you have to latch on to someone necessarily and follow them around. But if there's someone that you admire and you've seen their work and they're accessible, maybe they're local, you can do research. I mean, nowadays, with all of our social media, you can do research on people, find out about them, learn about them, and you can call people up and you'd be surprised how people will make time for you. Be bold about it. Don't be fearful or afraid. Speak up, ask questions, find out people's pathways and how they were able to do what they did. And don't be afraid to do different things as well. It used to be that we would get on one track and we thought that was the way. Nowadays, we see people with so many different talents. Utilize those talents. If there's something that you feel passionate about, that you're interested in, do those things. Nothing is wrong with that. And it all comes together in the end. Go for it, follow your passions. And even if you don't feel totally passionate about something, sometimes we do things that we don't feel very passionate about. You never know where that experience can lead and how it can help later on. And so nothing is lost, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. When I think of good leaders, I think of people who inspire. I think of people who are collaborative and inclusive. I think of people who have ideas, but don't feel that they have a monopoly on the ideas. And that's where the collaboration comes in. It can be bold, it can be innovative. I think of people who are wise, who exercise good judgment. That doesn't mean that mistakes are not made, but who try to have the best information that they can in order to exercise good judgment and therefore wisdom in decision making.
In my experience, the best leaders are learners. People who want to learn from the staff they have created, from the employees that they have hired. The ego is put aside in great leadership, and it is at times collaborative, at times strong leadership, always knowing that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You have hired these people for a reason. Rely on them, bounce ideas off of them, elevate each other. I think that's what a good leader is, someone who listens as well as leads.
You don't have to be an elected official to be a leader. You have to care. You have to care a lot about what's happening, that affects your family, that affects your friends, that affects your neighborhood, that affects your community. And you have to really work hard. And volunteerism is absolutely one of the most important tools for learning how to be experienced in addressing issues of importance. And one of the things that I think is of really, really serious leadership qualities for somebody who's in an elected position as I was, is to mentor women, mentor other women. I was very cognizant of providing experience to other women so that they too could be productive citizens.
Thank you for joining us today as we celebrate these remarkable women who are making a difference in the world. If you'd like to learn more about our event or about other women who have made a difference, please visit us at www.womenleaderschangetheworld.com. Thank you.